Today I wanted to make a quick video about all the books I want to read before the end of the year. This is by no means an exhaustive list. I hope I read more than these books, but these are the ones I really want to get to in the next couple months. So first on that list is Dune by Frank Herbert. I'm nervous. I think I must be talking about reading this book a lot because I've noticed on TikTok and online I keep getting videos or articles all about explaining Dune and going into how confusing it is and trying to help people get through it. So I watched some of those videos. They were spoiler free. It was mostly about things like just like setting the scene, about the world building, about some of the characters, and basic points of the plot. And so I think that was helpful. Generally speaking, I don't read a ton of sci-fi. I read a lot of fantasy, and I know fantasy and sci-fi are often paired together, and a lot of people who enjoy one genre often enjoy the other. Hasn't always been the case for me, so much so that in university I even took a sci-fi course because I had read nothing. And that was a good intro, but it's still not a genre that I dip my toes into that often. So I'm a little nervous for this boy. He's pretty chunky, and the way that people talk about it has not alleviated any of my fears. However, I hope the fact that I read quite a bit of fantasy will help with some of the specific concerns that I hear people talk about a lot with this book, which is, it being kind of confusing, there being a lot of terminology that you need to remember, lots of place names, lots of characters, and that's something that I am definitely very accustomed to with fantasy. So I'm nervous, but I really want to read this book because the movie comes out next month, and I have not been this excited for a movie in a long time. I'm not a super avid movie watcher. I have, a couple that I love a lot, and every now and then I'll be excited for a movie to come out. I think the last movie I was genuinely excited for was the 2020 Emma, a Jane Austen adaptation. I loved it. So, but this level of excitement, I am so stoked for this movie. So I definitely want to read the book before I see it. So this one is the next book I'm going to read. So after I read that book, I might need a palate cleanser. I might need something that's, light and enjoyable and easy to read. And I think that's going to be The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. I don't often go into a book, expecting it to be a favorite or anything, but I think this book will be. Just by everything I've heard about it, the magical realism, the found family, the endearing characters, it's described as being very whimsical, which that is my shit. If you describe a book or a movie as whimsical, I'm in. And also people often describe it as being a feel-good story. So I definitely want to read this book. I think it's going to be a 5-star read. I will be supremely disappointed if it's not, but I can't imagine not loving this book. And like I said, I might need it after Dune. Two books that I definitely want to read before the year is over, but I don't have physical copies of, is Northanger, Abbey and Sense and Sensibility. I had to think for a minute because this year I made a reading goal to read all of Jane Austen's books. I'm currently reading Persuasion and loving it, and then after that it's only these two left. And the reason I don't have physical copies of them is because thus far all of my editions of my Jane Austen books are, like the same editions, so they all match. So I'm not about to buy a book that doesn't match all the rest of them. So I'll probably borrow them from the library or hunt down the editions that I need. I don't know anything about Northanger Abbey, like none of the characters, the plot, nothing. And then Sense and Sensibility, I saw I don't know what year it is, but the Emma Thompson, Kate Winslet, Alan Rickman, Hugh Grant version of that movie, and it was really, really nice and really enjoyable, so I'm sure that will be a nice read. But I will 100% be reading those books before the end of the year. One book that might become the sacrificial lamb, if I have to, is Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel. So this is a book I really want to read. It's my friend Catherine's favorite book of all time, but it's pretty big. And like I said, there's some other books that are, very pressing. I have to read Dune because the movie's coming out. I have to read the last two Jane Austens because I set a goal. But I would really like to read this book. It's a historical fiction. I used to think that I didn't like historical fiction until I was organizing my bookshelf and obviously I did it by genre, because anyone who doesn't, I don't know how you people find anything. But yeah, I realized that I have a lot of historical fiction, but I think when I picture historical fiction, I think of World War II. So many books set in World War II. And I don't like those books. Not to say that they're bad. I've read one book set in World War II that I liked. But that's what I think of when I think of historical fiction. I think of World War I, World War II, girl, silhouette of a woman from behind walking down a street. Every single cover looks like this. Now that I've said it, it's every single historical fiction cover. And so I thought, I don't like historical fiction because those were always the ones that I saw. But Wolf Hall sounds really interesting. I don't know that much about it, which I always think is fun. But I know that it's set, long time ago. I think it might even have... Okay, yes, 1520s. Long time ago. That's the technical term. Lots of political intrigue. I think a romance. I hope a romance. That would be interesting. But yeah, so I'd like to read this book. I hope I read this book. If you know anything about my reading habits, which you might because I'm talking about it a lot here, I talk about it on my Bookstagram, I talk about it with my friends, is that my biggest goal for myself for this year was to finish all the series that I have started. I feel like I do the opposite to what other people do, which is you read the first book in a series and you love it so much and then you power through the rest of it. I do the opposite. I read the first book, I'm like, wow, that was really good, I'm really into it. Now I want to try something different. And so I realized I had read the first book in 5 different series and then had become, partway through other series. And I had so many books on my bookshelf of first books in other series that it was getting out of hand. So I said, nope, I need to finish the ones I've started and then I will start some new series. So I've done really good. I've been really good at finishing up those series. I only have a couple of books left. I hope to be done that goal by the end of this year, but I think I'm ready to allow myself to start a new series. And that is The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, so the Kingkiller Chronicles. James, I'm gonna read it. My friend has been badgering me to read this book and this series forever. Anytime I post a picture and he sees it on my bookshelf, he's like, so, have you read it yet? It's still there. yes, I'm going to read it. This is going to be the next series that I start. I can't promise you exactly when I'm going to read it, besides it being before 2022, but the next time I start a new series, it will be this one. I've had this book on my bookshelf for 3 years. And I think before I didn't read it, because again, it's a bit long. I was in a bit of a reading slump and I just couldn't bring myself to read it. Then I found out that the series wasn't finished and that the author was taking a really long time between books, and I have been burned in the past with that. And then I just wouldn't let myself start any new series. So this book will be read before 2022. So as usual, my TBR is a bit fantasy heavy, so I wanted to pick another book from another genre to even things out. I've been trying to get more into contemporary. It's not a genre that I typically pick up, but it is one that I really want to try to get more into. So by doing that, I thought I would read another Backman book. So this is Anxious People by Fredrik Backman. I read A Man Called Ove this past year, and it was one of my favorite books of the year. I loved it so much I lent it to my mom, she lent it to my aunt, and I knew a lot about that book going in. I knew pretty much everything that happened. And despite Anxious People being such a popular book, I know almost nothing about this. I think there is a romance. Yeah, and I just know that I love this cover and I see it everywhere. Backman's a really popular contemporary author right now, and I really enjoyed his last book, so I'm going to give it a shot. Again, this is one of those books that I'd like to try to read, but I'm not as committed as I am about Dune, the Jane Austens, and Name of the Wind. So, like, those are the top 3. And then I really hope to get to this one, because I need to branch out. I need to read. I say branch out, even though I've read something by this author before, but I'm trying. I'm trying to get into contemporary. Those are the books that I want to read before the end of the year. So I have a little over 3 months. I feel good about that. I would love to know if you've read any of these books and what you think of them. If you have any other book recommendations for me, because, like I said, I definitely hope to read more books than just these in the next 3 months. And also, if you have any books on your TBR, either that you want to read before the end of the year, or if there's any books that you read that like coincide with the season. I know right now with everything turning to autumn, so many people are organizing their TBRs to be like the spooky season, or lots of people love a good comfort read in the winter. So yeah, if you have any seasonal books, any books that are on like your TBR, or ones that you are really putting the pressure on yourself to read, the way that I am with a couple of these books. So please let me know.